I thought my husband was cheating. The truth was worse. Both of my sisters were helping him ruin me. They planned to take my home and my future at our parents' party, but I turned it into their downfall. The scent of lemon oil and old wood was the scent of my life. It was the smell of our house, the sprawling two-story colonial that had been my sanctuary, and, I thought, the proudest achievement of my marriage to Mark. Every Saturday morning, I'd polish the antique banister my grandmother had left me, the rhythmic motion a kind of meditation. This house, this life was what I had built. I was Clara, the reliable one, the steady center around which my chaotic, brilliant family orbited. My older sister, Eleanor, was a high-powered attorney in Boston, sharp as a shard of glass and just as cool to the touch. My younger sister, Sophie, was the artist, a whirlwind of emotion and creativity who had never quite managed to land on her own 2 feet. And my parents, they loved us all, but in the way one loves different types of weather. Eleanor was the impressive thunderstorm they bragged about. Sophie was the unpredictable but beautiful sunset, and I was the clear, sunny day, dependable, always there, and easily taken for granted. They never worried about me. Clara could handle it. It was the refrain of my entire existence. Mark, my husband, seemed to be the one person who saw the effort behind the ease. He was charming, handsome, and his ambition was a perfect match for mine. Our life was a carefully curated picture of success. The beautiful home, which my inheritance had given us the down payment for, the 2 new cars in the driveway, the annual vacations we'd post about online. I found a deep, quiet pride in it. I believed our stability was the foundation that allowed the rest of my family to be so dazzlingly erratic. I was the stage manager, content to work in the wings while they shone under the lights. The biggest event on our horizon was my parents' 25th wedding anniversary. Naturally, I was the one planning the party. It was to be a grand affair at a beautiful event hall, a testament to the enduring love I so admired and the family bond one worked so hard to maintain. One Tuesday, I was on a 3-way call with Eleanor and Sophie, discussing the caterer. The price for the sea base is astronomical. I sighed, staring at the invoice on my laptop. Well, you can't have cheap fish at a silver anniversary, Clara. It's tacky. Eleanor's voice crackled through the phone, crisp and dismissive. I'm just trying to be mindful of the budget, I said. It's good you can handle it. Eleanor said, her tone smooth as silk. Mark's business is doing well, right? It sounded like a question, but it felt like an assessment. Her words always carried a subtle weight, as if she were cross-examining me. We're fine, I said, forcing a cheerful note. I wish I was, Sophie chimed in, her voice a theatrical sigh. This artist grant I'm applying for is a long shot. I'm so broke. I'm practically living on instant noodles and dreams. An hour later, I transferred $200 to Sophie's account with a note for real food, hugs, and kisses. I paid the deposit for the sea base myself. I was the fixer. It was my job. That night, the first crack in my perfect world appeared. It was nearly midnight, and I was doing our monthly finances, a routine task I always handled. I clicked open the credit card statement, my eyes scanning the familiar list of charges: groceries, gas, Mark's lunch meetings, my yoga studio membership. Then I saw it. A charge from Bijou Deluxe, a jewelry store so high-end I'd only ever window shopped there. The charge was for $5,000. My breath caught in my chest. $5,000. I scrolled back through my memories. My birthday had passed 2 months ago. Our anniversary wasn't for another 6. Christmas was a distant memory. There was no occasion. I had certainly never received a $5,000 piece of jewelry. When Mark came upstairs to bed, I kept my voice casual, a practice calm I'd perfected over years of mediating family squabbles. Hey, honey, I was just going over the credit cards. Did you see this charge from Bijou Deluxe? It's for $5,000. I'm thinking it must be fraud. He glanced at the screen from across the room, not even bothering to come closer. Oh, that? It's definitely fraud. Good catch, babe. I'll call the bank in the morning and have them reverse it. He smiled, that easy, reassuring smile that had always made my anxieties melt away. You're so on top of things. I wanted to believe him. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to accept his explanation, to file it away as another problem I had capably solved. But I couldn't shake a cold, slithering feeling in my gut. He hadn't seemed surprised. He hadn't seemed angry that someone had stolen our money. He just seemed dismissive. And then, another memory surfaced, sharp and unwelcome. About a month ago, I had been shopping with Sophie downtown. We'd passed by Bijou de Luxe, and she had pressed her face against the glass, pointing at a delicate, glittering diamond tennis bracelet. God, can you imagine? She'd breathed. To own something that beautiful. I closed the laptop, the click echoing in the silent bedroom. Mark was already in the bathroom, the water running, humming a tune from the radio. I stared at our reflection in the dark window, the two of us, the perfect couple, in our perfect house. For the first time, I wondered if I was the only one who couldn't see the cracks. The scent of lemon oil suddenly seemed cloying, like it was trying to cover up the smell of something else. Something rotten. The lie sat between us for a week, unspoken but enormous. Mark was a master of normalcy. He called the bank, or at least he said he did, and reported the charge as resolved. All taken care of, he announced cheerfully one evening. But something had shifted in me. The placid surface of my trust had been broken, and I couldn't stop myself from peering into the murky depths. I became a detective in my own home. It started small. I noticed his phone was always face down on the nightstand now. When a call came in, he'd quickly walk into another room to take it. Then came the late client dinners that he'd text me about, always too late for me to call him back. He'd come home smelling of wine and a faint, sweet perfume that wasn't mine. The paranoia was a physical thing. It was a constant thrumming under my skin, a tightness in my chest. I hated the person I was becoming, suspicious, anxious, a wife who doubted her husband. But the alternative, ignoring the growing mountain of evidence, felt like an act of willful blindness I could no longer perform. The breaking point came on a Thursday. Mark was in the shower, and his gym bag was sitting on the floor by our bed. I saw a corner of something metallic peeking out from the side pocket. My heart began to hammer against my ribs, a frantic, trapped bird. My hands trembled as I reached into the pocket and pulled out a second phone. It was sleek and new, an identical model to his primary one. I pressed the power button, and the screen lit up. It asked for a passcode. My mind raced through possibilities, his mother's birthday, his old Jersey number. Then, with a sickening lurch in my stomach, I typed in my own birthday. It unlocked. The screen opened to a string of text messages. The contact was saved only as E. My blood ran cold. Eleanor. The thought was so monstrous, so impossible, that my mind refused to accept it. It had to be a colleague. Erica. Emily. Anyone but my sister. I scrolled, my thumb shaking. E. He's taking you to dinner tonight? So jealous. With a red dress. Mark. It's just a client thing. You know you're the only one I want to be with. E. I can't stop thinking about last night. Mark. Me neither. I've never felt this way before. And then, the text that made the world tilt on its axis. E. Can't wait for the anniversary party. It'll be hard to act normal around her. Mark. Just focus on me. We'll get through it. We just have to be careful around Mom and Dad. It was family. This wasn't a colleague. This was someone who would be at my parents' anniversary party. Someone who called my parents Mom and Dad. The room began to spin. I felt a wave of nausea, so intense I had to grip the edge of the dresser to keep from falling. I took a photo of the screen with my own phone, my hands clumsy, before shoving the second phone back into the gym bag, just as the water in the shower shut off. For the next few days, I was an automaton, going through the motions of my life. I finalized the seating chart for the party, my hand steady as I placed a card with Eleanor's name next to her husband's, my mind screaming liar, liar, liar. The suspicion was a poison, and it was twisting everything. Was her legal advice over the years a form of control? Was her condescension just thinly veiled jealousy? The final, devastating truth came from the most unexpected place. It came from my own compulsive need to be organized. The anniversary party was a week away, and I was putting the finishing touches on the slideshow tribute. I had gathered photos from old albums, scanning them one by one. To find a few missing digital photos from a family vacation years ago, I logged into the shared family cloud account I had set up. It was our family's digital attic, filled with holiday photos, scanned birth certificates, and old-school reports. As the folders loaded, my eyes caught a new one I hadn't created. It was uploaded by Eleanor. The title was innocuous, Estate Planning Docs. My first thought was that she was finally helping our parents get their affairs in order. A flicker of the old appreciation for my sister's competence sparked in me. Then a colder, more cynical thought followed. What if it's not for them? With a sense of dread so profound it felt like I was drowning, I clicked the folder. It wasn't for our parents. The contents spilled onto my screen like secrets from a torn-open diary. The first file I opened was a folder of photos. My breath left my body in a single, painful gasp. It was Mark. He was with my younger sister, Sophie. They were in a hotel room, tangled in the sheets, laughing. They were on a sunny beach, his arms slung possessively around her. And there, in a close-up shot of her wrist, was the $5,000 diamond tennis bracelet. My mind short-circuited. Sophie? Not Eleanor? I felt a dizzying mix of confusion and a strange, hollow relief, immediately followed by a fresh wave of horror. Sophie, the baby of the family, the one I had protected and funded and cheered for. But the nightmare was just beginning. I clicked back to the main folder. There was a subfolder titled Asset Transfer. My legal knowledge was limited, but I didn't need a law degree to understand what I was looking at. It was a series of documents, meticulously drafted by Eleanor, outlining a step-by-step strategy for Mark to liquidate their joint investments and move the cash into a private, offshore account. It was a blueprint for financial annihilation. The final document was the one that stopped my heart. It was a PDF copy of a home equity line of credit application for $250,000, taken out against our house, the house my inheritance had secured. And there at the bottom, next to Mark's neat signature, was mine, a perfect digital forgery. The loan was co-signed by Mark and legally guaranteed by Eleanor. The pieces crashed together in my mind, forming a picture of such monstrous, calculated betrayal that I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just an affair. It was a coup, a conspiracy. Eleanor was the architect, using her legal brilliance not to protect family, but to defraud it. Sophie was the bait, the emotional and physical distraction. And Mark was the willing executor of their plan. They weren't just planning for him to leave me. They were planning to leave me bankrupt, in debt, and homeless, all while my younger sister took my place. I sat there on the floor of my beautiful office in my perfect house and understood. I wasn't just being cheated on. I was being erased. For a full hour, I didn't move. I just sat on the plush Aubusson rug in my home office, the glow of the monitor painting my face in the cold, blue light of my own destruction. The silence of the house was absolute, a vacuum where my life used to be. Every cherished memory was now tainted. Every act of kindness I'd ever shown my sisters reframed as a moment of idiotic blindness. The grief was a physical weight pressing down on my chest, making it impossible to draw a full breath. My first impulse was primal. I wanted to smash the laptop. I wanted to run downstairs and scream at Mark, to claw at his face until his placid, handsome features reflected the ugliness inside him. I wanted to call Sophie and hear her lie to me one last time. But then a different voice cut through the rage. A colder, quieter voice. It was the part of me that balanced checkbooks to the penny, the part that negotiated mortgage rates, the part that had built this life they were trying to steal. It was the part of me they had mistaken for weakness. Instead of screaming, I picked up my phone. I scrolled past Eleanor's number, past Sophie's, past my parents'. My thumb hovered for a moment over a name I hadn't called in years. Aunt Carol, my mother's sister, the family outcast, pushed away for being too dramatic and too difficult after my grandfather's will was read. I now suspected her drama had simply been a refusal to be cheated. I pressed the call button. She answered on the second ring. Clara, is everything all right? The dam broke. In a choked, frantic whisper, I told her everything. The bracelet, the second phone, the cloud folder, the photos of Sophie, the legal documents from Eleanor, the forged loan against my house. I didn't cry. My voice was eerily flat, as if I were reporting on a disaster that had happened to someone else. She listened without a single interruption. When I was finished, the silence on the other end of the line was not pitying. It was grimly validating. "They didn't just betray you, Clara," she said, her voice hard as steel. "They saw your kindness as a resource to be plundered. That's what our family does to the givers. Listen to me. Do not confront them. Do not let them know you know. You will not get angry. You will get a lawyer, and you will get everything." Her words were like a splash of ice water. She was right. An emotional outburst was what they expected. They had, in fact, planned for it. My role in their script was to be the hysterical, heartbroken wife, too consumed by grief to notice the theft. I decided, in that moment, to write my own script. The next morning, I made another call. To Ben, an old friend from college. We'd been in the same business ethics class, and he'd gone on to become a forensic accountant. We'd kept in touch loosely over the years, a Christmas card here, a happy birthday text there. "Ben, it's Clara," I said, my voice steady now. "I have a problem. I think my husband and my sisters are committing fraud against me." "Clara, Jesus," he said, his friendly tone instantly shifting to professional concern. "Okay, don't say another word. Meet me for coffee. An hour. The little place on Tremont. Bring your laptop." For the next 2 weeks, I became the greatest actress of my lifetime. I was a phantom of myself, my body moving through my life while my mind operated on a separate, strategic plane. I finalized the details for the anniversary party, discussing floral arrangements with my mother on the phone while simultaneously forwarding encrypted files to Ben. I smiled at Mark over dinner, asking about his day, all the while picturing him in a deposition. I helped Sophie choose a dress for the party, a sickeningly intimate sisterly ritual, telling her the emerald green brought out her eyes, while mentally cataloging it as another asset purchased with stolen money. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. The mask of normalcy was suffocatingly heavy. Ben was brilliant. He worked with a quiet, furious efficiency. He and the shark of a divorce attorney, Aunt Carol, had found for me, formed my secret war council. Ben confirmed the home equity loan was active and that $250,000 had been transferred from it into a newly opened shell corporation, with Mark as the sole director. The corporation's address was a P.O. box Eleanor had rented. It was a clean, vicious, and utterly illegal trail. The final piece of evidence, the one that solidified my resolve and extinguished any lingering flicker of familial sentiment, came from Ben a week before the party. He'd managed to recover a chain of deleted emails from Mark's server. It was between the three of them, Mark, Eleanor, and Sophie. They were discussing the timeline. Sophie wrote, "Are you sure she won't suspect anything? She's been acting a little quiet." Mark replied, "She's just tired from party planning. And even if she does, she'll just get weepy. She's so predictably emotional." But it was Eleanor's email that I printed out and stared at for a full 10 minutes. It was the nail in their collective coffin. Eleanor wrote, "Stop worrying. The plan is perfect. After the party, when Mom and Dad are feeling all sentimental, that's when he tells her. She'll be so focused on the heartbreak, she won't even notice the money is gone until it's too late. It's the perfect plan. Her strength has always been her biggest weakness. She'll try to handle it all with quiet dignity. We're counting on it. We're counting on it." They weren't just exploiting my love. They were weaponizing my character, my strength, my dignity. They had analyzed me like a lab specimen and designed a plan to use my best qualities against me. That was when I knew I couldn't just win a legal battle. I had to teach them a lesson. I had to do it publicly. I had to use the very stage they'd set for my humiliation as the theater for their downfall. The night of the 25th anniversary party arrived. The event hall was breathtaking, shimmering with silver decorations and candlelight. 100 of their closest friends and family were there, a sea of smiling, unsuspecting faces. My parents were glowing. I wore a floor-length dress of brilliant, defiant red. When Mark saw me, his jaw dropped. "Wow, Clara, you look incredible." He leaned in to kiss me, and I let him, the touch of his lips on my cheek feeling like a spider's kiss. Eleanor, elegant in a sleek black gown, gave me an air kiss. "Wonderful job, sis. It all looks perfect." Sophie, in the emerald dress, hugged me tightly. "I'm so proud of you, Clara." This is amazing. I smiled at each of them, a serene, placid smile that revealed nothing. Inside, my heart was a cold, hard stone. My ward counsel had prepared everything. A certified process server was having a quiet dinner at the hotel bar, waiting for my text. An email detailing Eleanor's conduct, complete with evidence, was queued up to be sent to the State Bar Association. Another email, detailing the fraudulent loan, was ready for the head of fraud at my bank, all scheduled to be sent the moment my speech was over. After the main course, I walked to the podium, tapping a glass for attention. The slideshow I had so painstakingly created was ready on the large screen behind me. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice clear and steady. The room quieted. "I'm so happy to see you all here to celebrate my wonderful parents. This past year, as I've been thinking about their incredible 25-year journey, I've learned so much about what family truly means. About love, trust, and betrayal. And I wanted to share a few of those lessons with you all." A murmur of appreciation went through the crowd. Mark beamed at me from the head table. I pressed the remote. The screen flickered to life. It started innocently. Photos of my parents' wedding, of us as kids. But then the tone shifted. The screen showed a screenshot of the text between Mark and E. Then a photo of Mark and Sophie on the beach, the diamond bracelet sparkling on her wrist. A collective gasp swept the room. I saw my mother's hand fly to her mouth. My father's face went rigid. Mark shot to his feet, his face draining of all color. "Clara, what is this? Stop this right now." I ignored him, my eyes scanning the crowd. I learned that betrayal is often a team effort. The next slide was a copy of the fraudulent loan application, my forged signature glowing red in a highlighted circle. The slide after that showed the bank statement from the Shell Corporation. Now it was Eleanor's turn to panic. Her face, usually a mask of cool composure, was a grotesque mess of fury and fear. "Turn it off, Clara. You have no idea what you're doing." "Oh, I know exactly what I'm doing, Eleanor," I said, my voice dropping, each word a perfectly aimed dart. I turned to the final slide. It was her email. I read it aloud. "She'll be so focused on the heartbreak, she won't even notice the money is gone until it's too late. It's the perfect plan." The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by Sophie's choked sobs. I looked directly at the three of them, their faces a portrait of ruin. "The only thing you got wrong," I said, my voice ringing with a power I never knew I possessed, "was me. You thought I was the family doormat. You're about to find out that when the doormat gets pulled, everyone standing on it comes crashing down." I turned to my stunned parents. "I'm so sorry that your anniversary had to be the stage for this, but this disease had to be cut out of our family." Then I looked back at the trio. "My lawyer has advised you not to leave the state. You'll be served momentarily." I set the microphone down on the podium, turned my back on the wreckage, and walked out of the room. The chaos erupted behind me as I walked through the grand doors of the ballroom. I didn't look back. In the lobby, I took out my phone, my hand perfectly steady, and sent a single text to the process server, "Now." Then I walked out into the cool night air, took my first deep, untainted breath in weeks, and hailed a cab. The fallout was cataclysmic, exactly as my lawyer and I had planned. The public humiliation at the party was just the opening salvo. Armed with irrefutable evidence of conspiracy and fraud, the legal proceedings were not a negotiation. They were surrender. My divorce from Mark was swift and brutal. The judge, after reviewing the evidence of the fraudulent loan, awarded me the house free and clear, the full balance of our untainted joint accounts, and a punitive judgment against both Mark and Eleanor for the $250,000 they had stolen, plus interest and legal fees. Mark was left with nothing but debt and a reputation so toxic he was eventually forced to resign from his firm. Eleanor's fate was, in many ways, worse. The State Bar Association launched a full investigation. Her meticulous planning became her undoing. The paper trail she had so skillfully created now led directly to her own front door. She was suspended from practicing law for 2 years, a death sentence for a career built on a pristine image. She became a pariah in the Boston legal community. And Sophie? Sophie was perhaps the most lost of all. Without Eleanor's cunning or Mark's resources, she was left with only her shame. She had gambled her relationship with her family for a diamond bracelet and a fantasy, and had lost everything. My parents were devastated. For weeks, they were trapped in a state of shock and grief, not just for the implosion of our family, but for their own role in it. My father, in a tearful phone call, admitted that by always praising Eleanor's ambition and coddling Sophie's dependency, they had starved me of the acknowledgement I deserved and created the very monsters who had turned on me. It was a painful, ugly truth, but it was the beginning of a new kind of honesty between us. They cut off all contact with Eleanor and Sophie, their support for me unwavering and absolute. Aunt Carol became my rock. She was the only one who didn't treat me with pity. She treated me like a veteran of a war she had fought and survived years ago. They'll try to apologize eventually, she warned me over coffee one day. Not because they're sorry, but because they can't stand being the villains in the story. Don't let them rewrite it. She was right. 6 months later, a long, rambling letter from Sophie arrived, full of self-pity and excuses. A year after that, an email from Eleanor, crisp and legalistic, speaking of profound regrets and a desire for reconciliation. I read neither of them. I put them in a box, a time capsule of a life I no longer lived, and placed it in the back of a closet. The first thing I did after the divorce was sell the house. The smell of lemon oil and old wood now made me sick. It was the scent of lies. Walking away from it, turning the key over to the new owners, was one of the most painful and liberating moments of my life. I used the money to buy a bright, airy condo in a different part of the city, one with huge windows and a small balcony overlooking a park. It was smaller, but it was all mine. Every piece of furniture, every book on the shelves, every color on the walls was my choice and mine alone. I didn't realize how much of my life had been a compromise until I no longer had to make any. I went to therapy, not because they had made me crazy, but because I needed to understand why I had allowed myself to be so invisible for so long. I learned to untangle my self-worth from my usefulness to others. I learned to build boundaries not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. A year after the party, I was standing on my balcony, a glass of wine in my hand, watching the sunset paint the Boston skyline in shades of rose and gold. The sound of laughter drifted from my living room. I wasn't alone. Aunt Carol was there, arguing playfully with Ben about the Red Sox. My parents were there, looking more relaxed and happy than I had seen them in years. A few loyal friends who had weathered the storm with me were sampling the cheese board I'd laid out. This was my family now. Smaller, quieter, but real, built on a foundation of respect, not obligation. I had a new job at a nonprofit I admired. I was good at it. I was valued for my mind and my contributions, not for my ability to manage the emotional states of others. I was even dating again, a kind, funny history professor who thought my organizational skills were impressive, not just convenient. My friend, Sarah, came out to join me on the balcony. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked, clinking her glass against mine. I smiled, a real smile that reached my eyes. I was just thinking about how sometimes your life has to burn to the ground before you can see the sky. She nodded, understanding. "You built something beautiful from the ashes." And she was right. The pain of the betrayal hadn't vanished. It was a part of my story now, a scar that would always be there. But it no longer hurt to the touch. It was simply a reminder of my own resilience. They had called me strong as an excuse to destroy me, counting on that strength to absorb their cruelty in silence. They didn't realize that my strength wasn't a sponge, it was a sword. They thought they were writing my ending, but they had only authored my beginning. As I looked out at the city, at the endless possibilities stretching out before me, I felt a profound sense of peace. I had lost a husband and 2 sisters, but I had found myself, and it was the best trade I had ever made. Some lessons cost you everything you think you have, but once learned, they give you everything you never knew you needed. Have you ever had a moment that shattered your world, only to realize it was the one thing you needed to be set free?